The idea of America as a city upon a hill with a special place in history has captured the American imagination since the origin of our country. As Christians who serve an eternal kingdom, how does our patriotic American identity and our call to civic engagement couple with our faith? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Dr. John Wilsey. He's the Associate Professor of Church History and Philosophy at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, as well as the author of American Exceptionalism and Civil Religion, Reassessing the History of an Idea. Dr. Wilsey, welcome to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a great honor to be with you.
So, Dr. Wilsey, you've traced the historical development of exceptionalism all the way back to John Winthrop's words to his fellow colonists in 1630 that they would establish a city upon a hill. You write, quote, "The idea that Americans are a people especially chosen by God and given a destiny to fulfill by him has endured since colonial days." So how do you see the idea of American exceptionalism influencing our nation ever since?
That's a big question. I'll try to simplify it. The idea that America is special, that America is different, that it's unique, has been an idea that has animated every generation of Americans going back to the earliest days of the founding, consistently, all the way through to today. Now, having said that, American exceptionalism has been understood in different ways in different times. But the idea that America is different and special and unique has held for all those generations.
What is the connection between this holding of American exceptionalism and the Christian faith?
Yeah, that's a great question. Historically, those who have advocated for love of country in America have always done so in the context of Christianity, Protestant Christianity, predominantly. That's not to say that Catholics and Jews and other faiths have not had something to say about it, but predominantly in American history, Protestant Christianity has been the lens through which people have seen their patriotism. Sometimes they've seen that patriotism in, inappropriate ways and even idolatrous ways. But also people have seen patriotism as a set of, ordered loves, as ordered love, that our love for our country is a virtue, a Christian virtue, and a good gift that God has given us. And that's what I think is best about the tradition of American exceptionalism.
So can America hold on to that idea of exceptionalism if we lose the understanding of God, of the vibrant religious freedom that we've had in this country?
It's more challenging for sure. I don't think you have to be a Protestant Christian to hold to, an ordered love, a rightly ordered love of country. You don't have to believe in God. You don't even have to be a theist. But you do have to believe in eternal truth. You do have to believe in permanent things, and you do have to have a high view of religion and the benefits that religion gives you in a society, at least.
Well, right there, just what you just laid out would be incompatible with what we're seeing in the legacy media, what we're seeing in the ideology being driven by some of the institutions of higher learning in our nation today.
Oh, agreed. The more that religion, God, but permanent things are undermined in institutions like the media, the government, big business, big tech, the more unsustainable it is to have any kind of love for country at all. If our understanding of America is that it is an experiment in depravity from the very beginning, such as what the 1619 Project wants to put forward, then what is there to love about America? There's no real basis then for love of country if the country is not seen as being worthy of love. So it's very concerning.
Well, then, Dr. Wilsey, we just become another nation.
Yeah.
And just another nation does not do the things that America has done to benefit the world.
Yeah. And that's why history education is so important. And it has to start in the home. It has to start with parents, teaching children how to think about their history and about their faith in an integrated way.
What happens if we lose this idea of American exceptionalism?
In short, we lose America. That sounds dramatic, but it's true. We lose America. What is essential to Americanness is freedom. Freedom as it's defined in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, other great documents like the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln's second inaugural address, Washington's farewell address. Freedom is always known by Americans as ordered liberty, freedom under just law. And that is one of the things that makes America exceptional. If we lose the concept of American exceptionalism, then I believe we will lose that concept of ordered liberty, because we've lost something in our tradition that has been handed down to us by our forefathers and foremothers, going all the way back to the founding of the nation. I think it's a very important question. Let me say one other thing before we move on to something else. I'm very fond of Alexis de Tocqueville and his book, Democracy in America. And in that book, he says that Americans have maintained a harmony between what he called the spirit of religion and the spirit of freedom. And he said that in his native France, they were not able to maintain that harmony, but in America, they did. And I think the great cause of Americans in our generation today is to preserve America, preserve American freedom by preserving that harmony that has always existed in America between the spirit of freedom and the spirit of religion.
Could that harmony also sometimes be described as tension?
It can be when the nation goes off the rails, for example, and is guilty of injustice. Then it is up to religious people to call the nation back to its founding ideals, to call it to righteousness. But that's part of the harmony too. The fact that we have the freedom to do that in this country is essential to what it means to be an American.
But there are some that do not want to see you and I exercise that understanding. In fact, I have no doubt that our conversation is going to be characterized as advancing Christian nationalism because we're talking about American exceptionalism. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, the way I would respond to that is if that is Christian nationalism, if what Alexis de Tocqueville described as the harmony between spirit of religion and spirit of freedom in America is Christian nationalism, then you know what? Call me a Christian nationalist. I don't think that that's something that we should be afraid of. Christian nationalism is a very complex historical and contemporary topic, and it has to be precisely defined. But if that's the definition of what a Christian nationalist is, then count me in.
Well, as you know, it's being used as a pejorative to try to drive Christians from public engagement. So given the context of what Scripture says, of what history says, the environment in which we currently live, how should Christians be governance engaged while also serving the greater kingdom, the eternal kingdom?
Christians should see their calling as being to, as Jeremiah 29 talks about, of seeking the good of the city to which you will go. Jeremiah said that to the exiles as they were going off to Babylon. Seek the good of the city. Seek the good of your community. Seek the good of your fellows. Be involved in voluntary associations. Be involved as much as possible in local politics, and as the Lord has gifted you to do so. We have a responsibility. We have a stewardship of our communities that we're charged with, starting at the very bottom, but working our way all the way up to the federal level. We should see our nation and our communities as an inheritance that has been delivered to us faithfully by our forebears. And we need to see our responsibility as delivering something to our children that is consistent with what we have been given, that stretches all the way back to the founding.
We just have about a minute left, Dr. Wilsey, but from your studies of history as you wrote your book, what examples jump out of what you've just described?
Well, I think the most quintessential American, the person that personifies American exceptionalism probably more than any other American, is Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln understood the crisis that he was in the midst of, that he was born into. He understood that God was not blind to the American condition, and that the circumstances that they were facing in his time were from God, and that we had lessons to learn from God. Abraham Lincoln should be studied, and Abraham Lincoln should be seen as the quintessential American, in my view.
Very interesting. Dr. John Wilsey, thank you so much for taking time out to join us today. Very, very enlightening and encouraging conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.